Hey guys, this is Vanessa Dyer, and I'm the Charlotte, North Carolina-based lifestyle blogger behind thecheekybean.com. With several successful years as a business owner, a first-time mom, and a deep passion for health and wellness, I'm here to share my honest, unfiltered advice on all things motherhood, relationships, travel, and more. So grab a coffee and join the conversation. This is the Cheeky Bean Podcast. Welcome back. I had an awesome conversation with Brittany Sjogren of Loverly Gray, and I cannot wait to share that conversation with you guys. So loved this episode. She's been one of my friends for years now. We actually worked together in corporate America at Insight Global, which is how we met. And we started our blogging journey around the same time as each other. So our friendship really kind of flourished during that time as we sort of leaned on each other to talk about what was working, maybe things that weren't. Our husbands worked for the same company as well. So even when her and I left to blog full time, our husbands were still at the same company, and we still got to enjoy some of the perks that we liked so much about corporate America. But I am so impressed by how she's really created her own career. She's cultivated such a highly engaged audience. So many people look to her for outfit inspiration, for workwear. She's wildly consistent. I feel like we could discuss so many different topics, but today we are talking about kids. We're talking about wellness. We're talking about her routines, what it's like working with her husband every day. We also dive into her journey with IVF and building a multi-million-dollar business from scratch. I have absolutely loved watching her brand evolve into what it is today. I'm one of her biggest cheerleaders and just really wanted to share her story with you guys. So with that, let's welcome the creator behind Loverly Gray, Brittany Sjogren, to the Cheeky Bean Podcast. Here we go. Brittany on the podcast. I'm so excited you're here. I wanted to do this episode for forever.
My gosh, I'm so honored to be here. It's going to be so fun catching up with you, honestly.
I know. So for those people who are listening who don't know our relationship, Brittany and I used to work in corporate America together for the same company. We worked at Insight Global. That's how we met. And then I think you started your blog like 6 months before me.
We were like right there, kind of a lot like at the same time, I feel like, which was kind of nice because we were like, okay, wait, how are you doing this and working? Or like, what are they saying about you doing XYZ related to the blog? So it's kind of like nice to have another person who got it.
Yeah, it was. And I kind of leaned on you, I feel like, as a mentor a little bit, just because you were like one step ahead of me for so long. So I'd be like, all right, what did you do for this? Or if you could do it differently, what would you do? And then we both kind of ended up going full time, and our husbands also worked for the same company. So that was an interesting ride. My husband is still there. Chris no longer is with Insight Global, but we at least got to like meet up at the company retreats and still see each other and hang out and talk blogging. And
it was so crazy. I think about that all the time. I'm like, what are the chances that we both worked for the same company, became friends, started blogs? Our husbands, like we met them, got married, they worked there, we were blogging. Like, it's just kind of funny that perfectly aligned for two people in like a different city.
I know. It's crazy. When did you go full time with Loverly Gray?
I went full time, I guess, January of 2017. So I started Loverly Gray January 2016, and then did it for the first year while working at Insight Global, and kind of got to a point like, I remember around October being like, I really need to like potentially get a promotion there, or I need to really take the blog full time. And obviously I was more passionate about the blog. So I was like, let's just take a leap of faith. Chris was like, I don't understand how you're going to like make your 6-figure salary that you were making at Insight Global with the blog like next year. I was like, just trust me. Like,
yeah,
just trust me. So it was like 2017 is when I took it full time.
Nice. So for those of you who don't know Brittany's story, can you give our listeners just kind of like your background, how you got started in the blogging industry, being in IT staffing, obviously very different worlds. But yeah, give us the rundown on like how you got into it, when you got started, and then kind of how things cultivated into what they are today.
I feel like I've always had like a fashion sense, like a desire to style outfits and look put together, try new looks. And so it's funny, even in college and even in high school, I just remember friends always being like, "Can I borrow that of yours? Can I borrow that of yours?" And I just always have had this like fashion kind of background. And when I was working at Insight Global, we were required to wear business professional attire. And I just felt like there was not really anybody, like blogs were kind of new. Pinterest had only been around for like 5 years at that point, Instagram for like 4 years. And people were starting to like do this, like take pictures of what they were wearing and share affiliate links or show people like, here's an outfit I styled and give inspiration. And so I was like, there's nobody really doing this for workwear. And I didn't want to just wear like a black suit or navy suit every day. I wanted to kind of have some personality because to me in my job, that meant going to meet a client who's like a manager of this IT help desk for Coca-Cola. He or she might remember me if I had like this outfit on that wasn't just like a blazer and black pants. Like I was like, how can I stand out, but also on a budget, on, what's appropriate, what still fits in the guidelines. So I really started kind of searching for those type of things. And then when I would find something, I would tell the girls in the office, like, oh, Loft is having 50% off. Like they have so many great skirts. We're all needing really great skirts or blouses. Like y'all should go on your lunch break and grab these things. And so then that just kind of turned into, I had some friends that weren't like just from a college that were like, you should really like maybe talk about this more, start a blog or start an Instagram or do something and show people. And we got married August 2015. And this was like December timeframe. I'm like mulling this idea. I was fresh off wedding planning, needing another hobby, and I'm like,
Yep.
maybe I should start a fashion blog. And Chris was like, go for it. Like, that sounds like a great thing for you to do. He was about to start traveling for work, like every 2 weeks or something international. So I was like, this would be a great way for me to kind of start. So that's kind of where it started. Just sharing work looks. And then would take clients to happy hour and I would maybe change into a different top and I would take a picture of it and be like, hey, I changed into this to wear to happy hour. Like, here's how you can still wear those pants with a different shirt and like elevate your work look for after work.
Yeah.
And just kind of started sharing like that.
Yeah. I'll never forget too. I think you texted me at one point and you were like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how awkward would it be for me to ask a stranger to take my photo? I was like, oh, I don't know.
I used to like take recruiter ones or, you know, if an account manager was shadowing me on the road for the day and I would be like, part of like being with me is taking my outfit photo today. So like we're going to pull over and we're going to like go stand in front of this door and I'm going to show you what to do. And they would be like, some were like, this is cool. And others were like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
But I had like a client that I used to have drinks with a few times and he would always be like, he was a photographer on the side. And so he would always be like, do you need a picture of your outfit? Because he knew what I was doing. And I would always be like, I'm definitely booking him for drinks like once a week because he will take my outfit photo.
Oh my gosh. That's like the perfect client to have.
I know. So yeah, it's wild. Some of the things just like thinking back, I'm like, how did I do this?
I know.
A full-time job at the same time. I mean, pre-kids. So I felt like I had so much more time, but
yeah, but I mean, that job still was like, sales is not your traditional 9 to 5 and you're done. It's typically more than 40 hours. So, like, I think about that a lot too, looking back, like the amount of time that we spent not only at work, at our day job, but then spending on our passion project outside was like so much more than a 40-hour work week.
it was crazy. I mean, I remember we used to obviously be to the office by 8 a.m. for like the 8 a.m. meeting, but like I mostly was getting to the office at 7 just to kind of like get coffee, get set up, like respond to some emails because I just kind of liked not rushing into the day. So I was really there from like 7 to 5:30, maybe 6 if I was really working on like calling candidates and things like that.
Yeah.
And after that, going to like a happy hour with a client. And then I would get home and like cook dinner for Chris, hang out. And then like 9 to midnight was like blog stuff.
Yep.
So crazy. I don't even know how I did it like that, but it worked.
I know. It did work. I did the exact same thing. And when I think about like if I were to try to do that now, it's just impossible. Like there is no time for that now anymore.
Need my sleep now. So
I know, same. It's a different world with kids too. Okay, talk to me about Chris. At what point did you meet Chris? What were his thoughts when you were like, hey, I want to leave my 6-figure corporate job to go do this full time? Was he on board? Was he like, absolutely not?
yeah. So Chris and I, when I started working at Insight Global in 2012, he worked there. I was a recruiter one. He was a pro recruiter. And so we're just friends, like totally didn't think anything of it for the first like year that I was at Insight Global. And then after that year, it's actually like right after he got sober is when we got together. And he got a promotion and he kind of like worked a lot closer with like Shane and like Bank of America team back when like
Yeah.
he was really doing that. So we started dating. He got a promotion. We started dating. And then we got married in 2015. And then I started the blog. And he was on board with it, but he was very much like, this is a you thing, like not a me thing.
Yeah.
He didn't know that like I needed somebody to take my pictures.
Right.
That would be like, hey, on the weekends, like we're gonna go take like 5 outfit photos and like this is what I'm gonna wear for the week, and then I'll figure something else out. And he was like not into it for the first like year. I mean, it was
Yeah.
like a struggle. I was like, listen, what do you need? What kind of
Yeah.
I don't know if I can say this, but sexual favors are we gonna
Yes.
do so I can get my
What
picture?
can I bribe you with?
Really. He was compensated appropriately for his, hard work clicking the camera. And
Right.
then I was like, okay, I really want to do this more. I'm going to need to like hire a photographer. And then he was
Yeah.
really on board with it when I started having help. Um, but it kind of got to a point, I feel like this is kind of where the question is going because he now works with me.
Yeah, which is very cool and like a totally different dynamic than where you guys started in terms of this.
Oh my gosh. And when he left Insight Global, I mean, he was running like global projects. Like he ran a Microsoft project. He managed the Apple mapping project in like United States and Europe when he was at Insight Global. So he was doing some like high level project management, like crazy, like millions and millions of dollars worth of like projects. And it was like kind of getting to the point for me where I was like, Leverly Gray was just doing so much more than what his salary was at Inside Global that I was like, this doesn't really make sense for you to like stay at your intense job when I really need help to grow Leverly Gray. He was already doing a lot of the business stuff on the back end. So he would come home and like do our books and, work with the accountants and with the lawyers and with like all of the people behind the scenes. Cause like I was not good at that.
Yeah.
Then we also had a baby. I mean, Collins was almost a year old when he left Insight Global. And I was just like, I was like full-time mom. He was leaving to go to work at like 6 a.m., getting home at like 4:30.
Yeah. And he was traveling overseas too, right? Wasn't he in London for a while? Yeah. It's a lot.
So I was like, I can't run a business at the caliber and like really where I wanted it to go and be a full-time mom without like a ton of help. She was in daycare and like my mom was kind of helping, but I would really need like him to kind of step into some of these things. And so I was sort of like, this doesn't really make sense. Like, I feel like, and we wanted to move back to Athens because I was pregnant with Hazel. And I was like, we're having a second. Like, you really need to like come on board and help me.
Yeah.
And we couldn't have moved with him still working at It's Like Global. It just like the kind of like our life and the pros that we were going to get from him having a lot of freedom just made sense for him to leave. Even though at the time I think he was like, this doesn't really seem like it's going to be like a great benefit to me.
Yeah, I was about to ask, what was that conversation like? Was he like, "Yeah, babe, let's do it," or was he kinda hesitant?
He was very hesitant just in the, like it was important for him to still feel like what his role in our family that was, like, really a needed role. You know what I mean? To him, he was like even though he wasn't necessarily the breadwinner, he had purpose in his job, and that's all he had, like, known. So, I really wanted to make sure he knew there was, like, a lot of purpose. Even though it looked different, he was still gonna be able to, like, find fulfillment in what he was gonna be doing. Which all seemed well and good, but, like, 3 months in is when COVID hit and then, like, the world shut down.
Yeah.
Became, like, pretty much full-time daddy daycare, which was not in the vision board.
Yeah, I was about to say he probably was like, "This is not what I signed up for."
Right. So, he definitely was like, Wait a second, I just left where this job where I had, like, so much purpose, and now, like, my only purpose is being a stay-at-home dad so that Brittany can keep working." And obviously, like, I say that with a grain of salt because, like, that was such a blessing, um, for Collins and him, like, their
For
relationship
sure.
and bond is just, like, unmatched, but it was just different than it wasn't what he thought. I mean, obviously, everybody going through 2020 and just, like, figuring out things that they weren't planning on ever happening. So it was definitely a shift, but now he has still freedom, but he also works in our corporate office. We have a team here, so he, like, works here in the office and but he also has freedom to, like, go on the golf course however many days a week he feels led to go play golf, you know? So I'm like, you would there's definitely some trade-offs.
Oh, for sure, yeah, the freedom, I feel like you, like, can't put a price tag on that.
No, which is what I was always like, "But how cool is this gonna be? We can travel together, like, you don't have to take off, like, we could just do it. It's, like, up to us." And
Right.
he much more like, "Yeah," but he likes structure, and so we've had
Yes.
to kinda figure out what does new structure look like.
Yeah. What does he exactly do for Love Really Gray? I know you've mentioned he is responsible for the back end of things, but for people who aren't familiar with our line of work, what does the back end of things actually mean?
I really run Leverly Gray like a business. We have like operating hours. I have a team of people who support me on different levels. And I really thank my time at Insight Global for just instilling kind of like this corporate environment while I feel like I took some positives away from that to bring into this business. So for Chris, he is a CFO. So he handles everything finance related. Anything from like paying the bills to coming up with budgets and like forecasting and working with our CPA and doing all of our taxes. But then also he does a lot of like stuff with the team on the back end, like goal setting and um like if somebody has a question, I'm he's somebody that they can go to any like business related questions. He does like all the payroll, all of the benefits, all of like any type of conversation that is needed to be had with like somebody on the outside. He handles at like a higher level. He kind of does like all of the operations.
Yeah, sure.
He's in control of all of that.
Very cool. Have you guys found that meshing, you guys working together has been hard to separate home life from?
So once we bought an office, we bought a house like in 2021 that we used as like an office space. And once we did that, we had like such better separation of church and state because at before that, like employees were coming to our house.
Yeah.
Like we had Annie, we had like Hazel was at home, Collins was in daycare. I had 2 employees coming to the house outside of the nanny. It was just too many people and him.
Lots of chaos.
Yes, and then it was, like, hard for me to, "Okay, like, 5 o'clock, goodbye, y'all." But then for me, I needed to decompress, but then he was there, so I was like, "Well, hey, let's run through this," like, and then it would just carry into the night. So once we moved and, like, operated the business outside of where we live, I definitely saw an opportunity for us to like cut conversations and be like, this is work conversation. This is like a home conversation.
Yeah.
I think that has really helped us. But then, of course, there's always those times where it's like, hey, we just got to have this conversation after work. And it is what it is.
Right. Yeah. What do you think the turning point for your brand was? You are somebody who's really persevered through everything. Like, obviously, Instagram is a very different place today than it was when you and I first started. I don't even think the algorithm was in existence when we first started. Like, it was still chronological order. Whoever you follow, that's who you saw in your feed. And so there's been so many changes and like evolution from static images to video. And you are somebody who has like really kind of remained steady in growth and having a really engaged audience, while other people have probably struggled with the change a little bit more. So what do you think kind of separates you from all the changes?
I feel like I've been consistent since day one, and not necessarily like consistent in posting, but just consistent in like the content that I show. I've
Yeah.
always wanted to share just like styling, outfit ideas. Like people are, I mean, everybody has to get dressed every day. And so to me, I'm like, well, I'm just going to give people inspiration every day. And the means of how that has come about has definitely changed with it being, a static image or a video or, I mean, stories wasn't even a thing when we first
Yeah.
started. So are we talking through what the material feels like, or is it just like an editorial type of photo? But I think for me, it's always been about giving people options and styling and being affordable. That because that was like not very popular when we first started. It was like everybody, it was like high fashion, and nobody was really talking about sales or sharing like, here's affordability. You can, even though that's like what so many people were searching for.
Right.
So I feel like I've just stayed consistent in showing that. And I've had to evolve on the type, like the way we create content.
Mm-hmm.
But it's been like really fun to try new things and make shifts and see what works and what doesn't work, and just constantly getting feedback from people. But I feel like just I'm stayed true to like what it is that I do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, having obviously known you for so many years and just consistently following your content, I would agree. Like, you have really stuck to what your brand is and what you provide and what the value add is. And I think that really works for you because these people keep coming back and they know that they can go to your page every single day and they'll get X amount of, outfit inspiration, which is really cool to see because it can be kind of taxing when, the algorithm's changing every day, Instagram's changing what they prioritize, and you're like trying to keep up with the times constantly, which I know a lot of people talk about just kind of feeling burnt out in the content creator space. Do you ever feel that?
Yes, I do. I feel like there's times when I've like overworked myself, or I'll be like, oh, well, let's just push that to next week. And then little did I know I've pushed several things to next week. So then that means we got to create a lot. But I've put some things in place for myself over the past 2 years. Like I take a full day off during the week. So I really try to operate the brand like a business. So we really try to post within business hours. Obviously, like that's not necessarily always going to be the case, but we try to always take Sundays off. And then I take Wednesdays off, but my team is still working behind the scenes. Um, so I feel like I'm setting myself up for success by just having like a refresh so that I'm not feeling burnt out, and just really like sticking to a schedule. Like that's just what works for me. So knowing like on Mondays, we're going to come in and have this meeting, and then we're going to have this block of time to shoot content. And that's going to be for Tuesday and Thursday. And then Tuesday, we're going to have this block to shoot content for Wednesday's post, and maybe like a second thing on Thursday, or you just kind of like really have set our days up to where it allows us to smartly work. So then when on those days I do have time off, we have things that are scheduled and that are going out. So I feel like that's allowed me to not feel like such intense burnout, because there was definitely a time, I mean, I remember it so vividly, just being like, I can't do this anymore. I'm having a panic attack. Like I am so overwhelmed. I'm overworked. I've been just like going hard and not putting myself first.
Yeah.
I feel like once I implemented some of these changes, I saw like a drastic difference in just my like wanting to, my desire to like keep going.
Sure. Yeah, I want to talk about too just kind of what the behind the scenes and the day-to-day looks like for you because I feel like part of this job a lot of people look at what we do and they think that it's so glamorous and like we get all these free things and we get gifted stuff all the time and like we have all this freedom to go do whatever we want to do during the middle of the week, but in all reality there's so much that goes into like the grit behind what the end product is that these people are seeing. So can you kind of give us like what a typical day in the life of Loverly Gray looks like?
What's a good day to do it? Monday is we come into the office at 8 a.m. We have a standing meeting with my team, which there's usually 6 of us in this meeting, not including Chris. And we just kind of go over our plan for the week. We recap on the week before, we discuss numbers, we talk about kind of a recap of what worked for us last week. And then we talk about like what is going on this week, what campaigns do we have coming up. It's also sometimes can be like a brainstorming session. Like last week, I challenged the team with like coming to this meeting, having 2 ideas for some like new series that we're going to do. So part of our meeting after we went over our numbers and kind of the stuff we always talk about, we had like a brainstorming session. And that meeting usually lasts about an hour. And then Nichelle and I will sit down for another hour after that and just go through like a more intense plan of like, okay, hey, we have an Abercrombie campaign that's going to go live Friday. So we need to shoot it by this date. Do we have all the product? Is it ready? Is it steamed? Where are we going to shoot it? So we kind of like have more of like that in-depth conversations of like, what does the shooting schedule look like for the week? And then there might be, like Nichelle will go off and meet with like social media and LTK team, and they will discuss like what kind of stories, like what are people wanting to see for this week. And so then she'll have a separate meeting and I might go record a few stories or a few videos for sponsored content. Like yesterday we recorded a Target collaboration that went live today, but we had to like get it sent in for approval. So it kind of go through that. And then we might block off like an hour or 2 to shoot new content. And then I might have a touch base with like a few of the girls in the office. And then we try to wrap up by 5 and head home for the day. But sometimes we're not leaving until 5:30. It just kind of like really depends. So that's like more of like an intense office day.
Yeah.
We have an office space that I have like try on room and clothes and like studio. So we're able to shoot all of the stuff and then jump right back into like maybe a meeting or hop on a call. And right now we're building a house. So some of those hours are devoted to like something not even really related to Loverly Gray, but we just kind of shift it around as needed.
Sure. I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about pregnancy. So, when you and Chris decided to have kids, were you somebody that was kind of like, I'm going to get pregnant right away? Like the day that we decide to have kids, we're going to start trying and it's going to take me no time and I'm going to get pregnant.
I kind of thought that would be the case. Like my parents had no trouble getting pregnant with either me or my brother. But I knew, so we got married August. In December, I had some like polyps on my cervix that showed up on like I guess some type of exam that maybe did my yearly exam that I had to have removed. And in that like appointment and when I was having them removed, the doctor was like, so some of the side effects are you might have trouble getting pregnant just because of scar tissue buildup. So if you're like wanting to have kids, maybe go off birth control or, it just realize it could take you a little bit of that, to get pregnant.
Yeah.
At that point, we're like 3 months into marriage and I'm always still thinking like, okay, like that's not going to happen to us. Like we're going to get pregnant right away. But we were like, let's just go off birth control and see what happens. If we get pregnant, great. If not, that's great too. Like we're just newlyweds. And then we ended up like we did not get pregnant right away. Like we probably tried for 2 years to get pregnant. Once we really we're like, okay, like, let's actually try. Like, we have it on our own, which is totally fine, but now let's actually try. And we ended up going through IVF to get pregnant with our first. So the thought of like, yeah, that's like, I'm for sure going to get pregnant very quickly became like, what's going
Yeah.
on here?
Yeah, I know you've been really open about kind of like your fertility journey and IVF, and I feel like that's something that is becoming more talked about nowadays, but really still isn't a topic that, when you're a child and you're like envisioning this life with your married husband that you think could be a possibility. And so I kind of want to share your story to people who are listening who maybe just don't even know what IVF is and don't know what all it entails and kind of things like leading up to it. What are they? Can you share your IVF story?
It's so interesting because like you don't know really where to start. Like if you're somebody like a listener right now listening who's like, this sounds like a very like we've been trying, nothing's really happening. Like, what do we do next? I remember like going to my doctor and just kind of feeling like lost, like I wasn't really getting help. So we just kind of opted. A friend of mine had seen a fertility doctor in Atlanta. And she was like, it couldn't hurt to just like set up a meeting and just kind of like tell her where you're at because she could at least put a plan in action. Whereas like maybe your OB could be like, well, I could refer you here, but you're not getting immediate like,
Yeah. So your OB wasn't like, you guys have been trying for 2 years, like, this is the next step.
no. She was just kind of like, okay, well, we could do like, it was almost like she was questioning, like, had we really been trying for 2 years? Or like, she was sort of saying, like, at this point, let's start trying. And I'm like, well, what we've been like trying
Right.
and doing all the things. And so we went to this doctor and we had all these tests done, both of us, is there issues with you? Is there issues with him? And everything came back like clear. So they label that as unexplained infertility. And basically she was like, we could try IUI, which is where they just like inject the semen into you and like it goes through your tubes and like is hopefully makes it into like meet with an egg. And there's all these pre stuff that they do to make sure your egg health is optimal and like that there will be an egg there. So we did 3 rounds of that thinking like, and that was something I was like, okay, for sure we're going to do this once and it's going to work. I'm healthy. I'm young. We don't have any issues. First round didn't work. Second round didn't work. Third round didn't work. And I just remember being like, this is so crazy. Like, why? And I think honestly, like a huge part of this was stress that we were putting on ourselves too. Like
Yeah.
looking back, like we were so stressed about getting pregnant, stressed about like Chris's work schedule. Is he going to make it back in time for like the day that we really need to like try to get pregnant on? Um, so then we went into IVF, and with that, you have to do an egg retrieval. So you're getting all these shots and taking all this medicine to get your body to produce as many eggs as possible so they can go in and retrieve those eggs and then make them into an embryo. And then from there, it's like like how many embryos actually make it. And everybody's story is different. But we did have 7 embryos that were viable, great health embryos. And so then we did IVF 1 round. We put in 2 embryos. And because our chances of getting pregnant on the first try is higher it like shot up the percentage by like 30% higher.
Is that like when you end up with the possibility of multiples?
I've always been down to have twins. Like even
Yeah.
still, like what if we had twins? Chris is like, that feels like it would be crazy.
Yeah, especially on the first pregnancy.
Would be one and done, I mean, who
Yeah.
knows? We just didn't know, but we were willing to take that risk to just even have one. So
Yeah.
that we got pregnant and then we had the successful transfer and then Collins was born, but it was just, I mean, nobody was really talking about it. I didn't even really share the in-depth part of IVF until I was probably like 18 weeks pregnant did I say like, we went through IVF to get pregnant. And I was overwhelmed with the amount of people that were like, we did IVF too, or we're struggling. What was it like? And then I saw just this opportunity to share our story. Um, but it's wild. I mean, you're right. It's like really not talked about a lot.
Yeah. What were some of the unexpected side effects that you like maybe weren't ready for when you guys started the IVF journey that you're like, "Oh, okay. This is happening."
Yeah, I mean, just like you're on all these like medicines and hormones, and to do the egg retrieval, like the medicine and the eggs, you literally get like bloating like a 4 to 6 week baby bump.
Oh, wow.
Are so bloated because you are like all of these eggs are like in your body waiting to get like retrieved. And so I was not prepared for that. I think there was definitely some mood swings. Just there's never going to be like a right time to do these things, but there's so many medicines and so like the shots, you had to do them at the same time every day. So if I was traveling, like had to give myself the shot, and it was hard. And sometimes I look back and I'm like, would I ever do that again? And I'm like, I don't know. Like
Yeah, it sounds like a pretty intense process.
it really is. And some people do it like multiple times, maybe IVF doesn't work for them their first or second time. And they're like, I mean, I just remember being like so desperate to be a mom and just like, I just was like begging God, like, I'll do anything. Like, I'll do however many rounds, just to like get
Yeah.
pregnant,
What would you say the most uncomfortable part of the process is?
not knowing if it's going to work.
Yeah.
And it's not, you're just like hoping that all this like time and effort and like change that you're going through is gonna end up with a baby, but you really don't know. And it's a lot of work on the front end to like hope to get pregnant.
Yeah. Well, I feel like mentally it's got to kind of play mind games with you as well.
Totally. I mean, and of course at the time I had like three of my really close friends get pregnant like this.
Yeah.
Like, of course. But it's not their fault that they got
Right.
and I was struggling. So I think like there's a lot of mindset around just kind of you can go into a very dark place very quickly, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But I mean, for those listening that are going through this, I would just encourage you to like stay strong and just don't forget who you are in this process. Like one thing Chris and I always did is we continued to like date each other during the process because we were going through it together, even though it was taxing on my body. He was in the process with me. And so I was like, I don't want to lose ourselves in this process. Like, I want us to stay a team. And that was really important to us. So I would definitely encourage that for anybody going through IVF right now.
Yeah. I think your story is so inspiring. And you have a podcast episode on it on your podcast too, right?
Yes, I do have, I think we might have two or three at this point, and I do have a podcast episode with Chris interviewing him on like his point of view. Cause another thing is like women have started to be like, I've found resources for me, but like my husband doesn't know what I'm going through or he doesn't understand. And so that episode with Chris, which I can get you like the specific episodes for those of you that might want to go back and listen to it. But um that one I feel like was really eye-opening from a guy's point of view, just because he gave a lot of like, here's how I supported her, here's what my thoughts were, and like it's okay to like have these type of thoughts or whatever. Yeah, there's a few episodes though on IVF in our journey.
Awesome. Yeah, we'll include in the show notes if you're listening and you want more resources or you'd like to hear Chris's story, we'll get what episode numbers those are from you and include them in the show notes for anyone who's listening. But I want to also kind of shift gears. So you have Collins at this point, and now you're a mom. What has motherhood been like for you and Chris?
It's been interesting. I mean, obviously had its challenges. It's like I feel so honored to just be a mom and love my girls. I have two girls now. And it's kind of funny because we went through IVF and then Collins is 6 months old and we get pregnant naturally with Hazel. And so we're like, whoa, we're about to go from like 0 to 2 within like 16 months. And like, how are we going to do this? And I think it's been such an honor to like be their mom and show them what it's like to be a hard worker and to have like determination and grit and running my business. They feel very loved by us, but they also like see us working really hard, which I think is just really important. It's funny. My dad just retired and I just did an interview last week with just kind of talking about his career and kind of watching him have his career, like what that has meant to me. And so many of the things I'm like, I hope that my girls like say this stuff about me someday.
Yeah.
That's really why I'm working so hard is like for my family and for them to have a good example. And yeah, it's interesting. But I mean, it definitely has its ups and downs. Motherhood is such a journey.
Any mom hacks that have made life easier for you?
Gosh, I would say ask for help. Like
Yes.
ask for help. And when somebody offers you help, take it, take them up on it. Like, I remember even in times where like friends would be like, hey, I feel like, y'all got a lot on your plate, or hey, I know Collins is sick. Can we bring you dinner? Like I used to be like, no, 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 no. Like we don't need anything. And now I'm like, yeah, we would actually love that. Like somebody's offering to do something that it's going to bring them joy to do. And just accepting it and realizing like it truly takes a village. Once I realized that and was okay with accepting help, I feel like that just made things so much easier being a mom.
Yeah. And I think too, like when you are like the nature of our personality types, like it kind of takes a specific person to do what we do. It's hard to accept help because you also kind of feel like you don't need it, but you do need it. And when you can accept that it's like okay to say yes to those things, to your point, I think it makes life so much easier. And like I think something that a lot of people struggle with when they accept the help is kind of like the mom guilt theory behind, well, like if I'm accepting this help, I'm not, maybe I'm not doing everything that I should be doing as a mom, when in all reality, that's really not the case.
Well, and I think too, like I have dedicated time with my kids where I'm like all in. I put my phone away. We are intentional with playing. Whereas if I didn't have help to be able to do those things, I would be struggling to like give them one-on-one time because I would be doing other things at the same time. And I've just really seen that be beneficial for our family specifically. So kind of it it's not selfish to put some of these things into practice to really be intentional. And I think that's like kind of what it comes down to. And there's always going to be people who think the way that I'm doing things is like not right, or they could do it better or whatnot. And I'm like, I think what we're doing is working for our family and just trying to be as intentional as possible.
Yeah, Shane and I did a podcast episode recently together, and we were actually talking about like once you have kids, you have to be so intentional with your time, like intentional with your time with your family, but also intentional with your time for the two of you as well. And that's something that we really had to learn because the first year we were just kind of like flailing and trying to do it all. And we're like, okay, we have to figure out a routine that works for us and kind of time block certain things. And something I saw on social media that I thought was like really a great tip. It's easier said than done, but it was this guy, it was actually a podcast clip, and he was talking about when he walks in the door at 5:30, he turns his phone on airplane mode because his kids are only up from 5:30 to 8:30. He's worked all day long. He hasn't had any time with them. And he was previously walking through the door and like face was still on the phone. People from the office were calling and he was just so detached, and his kids were like, "Daddy, daddy," and he just was one side of his mind was at work, and the other side of his mind was like halfway in with his kids. And so he implemented this airplane mode thing, and he was like, I'm just so much more intentional with my kids, and your kids notice that too.
And it's brilliant. I mean, they feel like you might not be able to see them in the morning because you leave for work before they are up, but they know every day they've got your undivided attention from this time to this time.
Exactly.
I think there's just something to be said about figuring out what that routine looks like for you.
Yeah, I would totally agree. I also wanted to ask you, how do you plan or how are you raising your girls in a social media dominant world, especially having such a big online presence like you do?
It's crazy because I feel like I'm like, they're not getting phones until they turn 16.
I say that all the time.
It is just wild. I really part of me has this like hope that I don't know if this is not realistic or not, but I feel like there's a lot of us in our generation, like where we didn't have like we have a really great grasp on like what it was like to grow up without social media. And I think that's really what we want for our kids. And so
Yes.
part of me, I'm like, I really hope that our generation kind of reverts back to that a little bit and maybe put some more strict guidelines for our kids, like once they get to those ages. I feel like another thing too is I've kind of stopped sharing as much like family stuff and like plastering their faces all over social media. I mean, occasionally I will show family picture or whatever, just for privacy for them. Like that's just kind of what we've decided is best. And at the end, like I started Loverly Gray as a fashion and styling blog. Like it never had intentions to turn into be like lifestyle and family. It's just tough, because I honestly don't want them to have social media. I mean, they're 3 and 4, so we have a good amount of time. And I think I am like able to protect them as much as I can right now. But I'm interested to see once they get a little bit older and have opinions and their friends are getting phones and having social media.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I am in the same boat as you. And also, I think a scary moment for me was our nanny came back from the park one day and she was like, somebody recognized Liam at the park without me there. And it just like terrified me because it was just a scary thought that someone came up to our nanny and was like, "Oh, is that the Cheeky Beans little boy? Is that Liam?" Like mind blowing to me because he really isn't on my social media that much. But after that, I like backed off even more just because I've seen a lot of stuff on TikTok about, what happens with kids on social media. And then that was just such an eye opening moment for me that's like, to your point, like my brand isn't my kid and he didn't choose to be on social media. But at the end of the day, it also is our day-to-day life and he is part of my life. So trying to find that happy medium where it's like, we take fall family photos. They're beautiful. I'm so proud of my family. I'm so proud of these pictures. Like what's the balance and the happy medium there and like what you do share and what you don't share? It's really hard. And I think that's something that our parents never had to figure out, but it's something that we have to figure out. And then later on down the road, we also have to figure out like, okay, what level of social media exposure is good for our kids when they do start asking for their own phones and their own social media platforms and accounts. And I feel like I was thinking about this the other day. Like I didn't have Instagram until my senior year of college. So I was like, early 20s, you've already lived so much. And like, yeah, you might not be super mature yet. You still have some growing up to do. Like you're mature enough to kind of figure out, right from wrong. And also social media, my senior year of college, like people were really nice on social media. It wasn't what it is today where there are so many people who just say whatever they want to say. And it's like, it's just a different world out there now.
It's our job as parents to protect our kids.
Yeah.
And they might not agree with it or their friends might not agree with it, but like I'm not your friend's parent and I'm your parent. And this is what that means. In our family, we do it like this. And that it just is what it is. But I hope that there will be enough people in our like intimate friend group that we can kind of be strong together. So then it's not just like us being like, we're the only ones who are, being the worst.
Right.
Sure, that's what they'll think someday, but I don't know. I'm just interested to see what happens because at the end of the day, it's like about keeping our kids safe.
Yeah, it's definitely tough. I would like love to interview somebody or talk to somebody who kind of has some expertise on this, but I also just think it's so new still because social media is still so new that we're kind of the first wave of people with young kids who are going to be in that boat where like they will have social media their whole lives.
Yeah. And even just like screens in general. I mean, there's nothing wrong with screens and we use iPads and stuff all the time with our kids, but like, what is the right amount of time? And, you know, I definitely notice a difference on the weeks that they have had more screen time just in their behavior to the weeks that they're doing like no screen time and playing and being active and stuff. Like their behavior is night and day and their attitude as like a 3 and 4 year old.
Yeah.
It's just wild what the difference is just already at that age.
Yeah. I would agree with that. Would you say, was it easier going from 0 to 1 or 1 to 2?
I think it was easier going 1 to 2 because I already had like an idea of what I'm getting myself into. I feel like it was much more of like a lifestyle change going 0 to 1. Just like freedom. Obviously, you don't have as much freedom, but you already like know what to expect. Whereas Chris would argue that it was harder to go from 1 to 2 because he became more responsible for number one, while I was like feeding or really caring for like Hazel as an infant because I was nursing and
Yeah.
that just kind of fell on me. So to me, that almost felt like, oh, wow, this is like a break. Like I'm just, have this sleeping baby and it's this special time. She's nursing, she's sleeping. And Chris was like, I've got a crazy toddler, so
Yeah.
he definitely felt the difference. But I feel like my confidence as a mom was just there more because I kind of knew what I was doing going 1 to 2.
Yeah. Yeah. You're definitely like more seasoned with the second one. Does it kind of change things in terms of like, does it get way more hectic when you have 2 kids versus one in terms of like trying to get places and going out to eat and traveling and
Yes and no. I mean, I also think there's so many variations of like age differences and ours are so close. So they're like kind of are like little twins. And especially now, just I feel like I treat Hazel as if she's like the same age as Collins, which is maybe not like great. And she definitely has her moments to remind me that she's not the same age as Collins. But as they get a little bit older, I feel like you're still a little bit in the trenches just with Liam being a little bit younger than because is he the same age as Hazel?
he will be 3 in January.
Yeah. So like 2 still feels like you're doing so much to just like you're putting their clothes on, you're,
Yes.
putting their shoes on, you're potentially still carrying a diaper bag. Like, whereas now I feel like I'm like, get your shoes on. We're getting out. Like, so as they get older, it definitely has gotten easier. But I would say those like beginning few years of them together so young, it was like, okay, this is like a challenge to like go to the grocery store, really a challenge to just, and you just do it, you get through it, but it gets easier for sure.
Yeah. One thing everybody wants to know who doesn't have kids, and even people who do have kids, but they want to know, how does having kids change your marriage, especially like before the age of 4?
I mean, I think you just have to be so intentional with your time with your spouse. Like, we have a standing date night every week that it's like non-negotiable.
Oh, I love that. You guys do it weekly. We do it monthly. I'm like, wait a second.
We have to spend that time. I also am like a big proponent of Moms on Call, which is like a sleep training schedule type thing. And you can start it as early as 2 weeks. Like, so when your
Yep.
baby is 2 weeks old, you start this sleep training and they are like sleeping through the night by 3 months. And literally, that was so important to me to then have from 7 to 10 or 7 to 9, whatever, just with Chris and I to be able to like watch our show or have conversations or go sit outside on the porch and just like talk or read a book or scroll Instagram, but just being in each other's presence together, undivided without like the kids, that has made like such a huge difference. So I think, yes, it changes because, in the middle of one of those nights, like there could be crying that all of a sudden happens and you have to go figure out what's going on. Or, it's not like just because you put your kids to bed doesn't mean like, like you turn off your parenting abilities,
Right.
but having that time is just, to me, was like a non-negotiable. And I think that's what's kept us like having a really strong like relationship and has been very important for us.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree. That's like our number one thing too, is really being intentional with time. And we do the scheduled date nights. We do them once a month, but now I'm going to tell Shane we need to quadruple down on once a week. But yeah, it's definitely, you kind of figure out like what's important and what, recharges the marriage battery. And for us, it was definitely time together, just like you guys.
If we're not in a good spot, our kids can see that. Like, even now
Right.
at this age, there's been some times where the kids are sitting at the table and we're just having a discussion, and I'm like, "Really? Like, that's," or we might, like, not argue, but it's like our tone has changed a little bit, and Collins will be like, "Guys, don't fight." And we're like, "We're not fighting, we're just having a conversation." But I'm like, if she's even picking up on a
Yeah.
tone change, just imagine if the way that they would respond to a knockout fight, And I mean,
Right.
that's just not the environment that we're wanting to foster for them. Um, so they just pick up on so much though.
They do at such a young age too. Like, I mean, Liam at 2.5, if kind of to your point, like the tone thing, like if he can sense that the tone is changing between Shane and I, it's actually really funny. He's like, "Mommy, are you funny?" Like he thinks sad or mad is the word funny. I don't know why. I have no idea where that came from, but he's like, "Mommy's funny." And I'm like, no, buddy, I'm not funny. But it's just crazy. Like you're 2.5 and you can sense like that there's tension in the conversation. And so we've also kind of tried to be intentional about like, we don't argue or raise our voices in front of Liam or our kids, just because like that's not fun for anybody involved. And that's also not the environment that we want. We don't want to create an environment where like he's not comfortable, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. I just think at the end of the day, like, if we are the healthiest version of ourselves in our marriage, like, that's only gonna make us better parents.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Well, how do you balance it all? You've got a thriving business, you've got a podcast, you guys have an Airbnb, you're building a house. I mean, you are a working woman. How do you manage to balance it all? Like, you're like the jack of all trades.
We definitely do a lot, but I would say, I mean, like, I owe so much of what we do to, like, my team that is behind the scenes, just really making everything go round. We've just hired some, like, really amazing people that support us on the business side, on the personal side. We've got outsourced help with, like, running our Airbnb. I mean, I think that's just, like, has been the key to my success is, like, I can't do it all by myself. And having people who see my vision and really want to be those behind the scenes people who are going to help make it come to life. Like, I mean, I look back, a few weeks ago, Nichelle was out on PTO, and one of my other girls who handles like all of my LTK was out. They were both out at the same time. And I remember at one point being like, wow, I'm doing like three people's jobs right now, and it's taking me so long. And that's just fine. But I'm like, this is why we've hired help, is like, it shouldn't take this long, or this was something I could outsource. It's almost like validating, like, okay, I'm so glad that I have them in my life. But I think that has just been like the key to success is having people behind me who really like want to help me be successful and help the brand grow and be what it is today.
Yeah. What would you say you look for in terms of a good hire?
Oh, that's a good question. I think just like go-getter attitude, someone who's determined. We've had like such a great group of people who work here, and even some of the people who don't work here anymore. I think there's just each of them have had their own attributes that have made them successful for their roles. But
Mhm.
I think at the end of the day, it's just like that go-getter attitude, that like willing to come in and do whatever it takes. Um, and who just is like wanting to support the bigger picture has been just some things that I'm like, you really can't like train that. So you
Right.
need to come in already being like, I'm here, like, I want to help you grow. I want to help. Like, how can I use my skills to like take this to the next level?
Yeah, really motivated in the shared goal.
Absolutely.
I love that. Well, we talk about wellness a lot on this podcast, so I can't end the podcast without asking what your wellness routines are. I know you mentioned earlier in the episode that you take every Wednesday off, just kind of to regroup and spend time on yourself. Anything else that you do that you would recommend or absolutely love?
I feel like I have kind of implemented a few things that I do weekly just over the last like 2 years that really just kind of help set up my weeks. Um, I talk with a therapist slash life coach every week, and that was like a game changer.
I
Just
love
having somebody that if I'm having like a mindset issue or, it's maybe some of our conversations are more like, hey, I really am like struggling with something and need some like therapy related talk to I'm good, but like I'm trying to figure out the next step for my business. Can we brainstorm? Like having that person to talk to every week for the last 2 years has been such a way for me to like pour back into myself. So that's one thing. And for a long time, I was so like, I don't need a therapist. Like I'm fine. I'm not like, there's nothing wrong with me. And that is, I wish I would have started talking to somebody like years ago. Cause I feel like it's
Agreed.
just such a great tool to have just somebody who is listening to you and can play devil's advocate with you when needed. And so that's
Yeah.
been amazing.
Is your therapist and the life coach, are they two separate people or is it one person?
The same person. So she's technically a life coach, but she has a therapy background and like a background in counseling. And so for us, we kind of really go between those two. Um, but she's does a lot more mindset. Like that's kind of like her bread and butter. But then just the way our kind of program is set up, she also pulls in the counselor side of things when that's what we need to talk about.
Yeah. Are you willing to share who it is? Like, does she do clients virtually?
Yes, she is amazing. Her name is Jen Bowie. I can get you her Instagram and stuff. And we actually have interviewed her a few times on the Life with Loverly podcast, and she's just given some like amazing tips and tricks. We recently interviewed her. So this one will be like kind of closer to the top of our episodes, but it is. We did like a whole conversation on the victim versus victor mentality. And like when you find yourself like in this victim of like, poor me, everything else is happening good for other people kind of mentality, like how to get yourself out of that to become a victor. And it was so eye-opening and motivating and just I think really speaks to people who are like people pleasers. There was just like so much goodness in that episode, but she does take on new clients and she does a lot of like group counseling. She does everything virtually. So you don't like we talk at 6 a.m. on the mornings that we talk.
Oh, I love that. She's an early bird. Anything else?
I work out with a trainer a few days a week, which has just kind of like really helped me be strong and stay healthy. And I feel like there's just so much I'm doing go, go, go that I like need to like train and fuel my body to be able to like stay at the caliber that it does. And then earlier this year, I hired a dietitian to kind of like help me revamp my health and like what I'm putting into my body. And that has been so amazing. So, and all of this stuff, I mean, of course, like I love a massage and certain things like that. But some of these things I feel like I'm doing right now are to invest in myself to like see continued benefits like for years to come. Like that's very important. But I also think it's like very important to just go sit outside and ground yourself every now and then if you're feeling stressed or do some
Yeah.
like stress breathing treatments. Just like self-care I mean, and wellness can look different for everybody. And some people might only have a small amount of time. So just kind of getting in what you can, but making it a priority is like absolutely a necessity.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I think it's easy too when you like run a business or you're in a corporate job and you're a mom, it's so easy to forget about yourself.
Yes. You can't pour from an empty cup. So you have to pour into yourself first.
Yes, 100%. Well, Brittany, thank you so much for coming on. You are a force to be reckoned with. I've always looked up to you. I just think that you are so good at what you do. And I'm so thankful that you came to chat with us today.
Vanessa, it's been amazing. I love our conversation. Before we hopped on, I was just thinking back of just like our friendship through the years. And I've just always just have loved bouncing ideas off of you from our early blogging days to just like somebody I've always considered as such like a great friend. And I've always know you're in my corner and I'm in your corner. And it's just an honor to be on your podcast.
Oh, that's so sweet.